stuck in your head. I promise you, you'll be humming that tune a little later on. The soothing sounds of Joey Cleveland bringing you in with the That's What Jeed Said theme song. It's time to talk another week of NBA basketball. We're here with Eric from ETOF21 Sports. Buddy, how's it going, my friend? How's everything been the last week or so for you?
Pretty good. A lot of basketball action going on, and playoffs are right around the corner. Some interesting news happening around the league, and looking forward to talking to it.
Let's start like we generally do over in the East, and we can kind of roll from the top down and see how things are going with a lot of the teams in the playoff picture. So your Bucks, man, they're playing some good basketball right now. They're 18-1 in their last 19. For those of you listening, we're recording this on Wednesday night. So if we're off by like a game or two in the standings, and maybe you're listening on Thursday or later in the week, just keep in mind we're recording Wednesday night as some of these games are actually being played. So 18-1 in their last 19. They're in their last 15 games. They have the number one defensive rating. And honestly, Eric, it's not like it's rocket science for them. They're just finally close to all the way healthy. With a full squad, they're the team to beat. Because I think we can ask the question repeatedly, who can stop Giannis anywhere, but in particularly in the East? I think the only guy in the entire league in a series, if they were healthy, who could have a good time with Giannis going against them would be Anthony Davis at peak defense, because I think they both have sort of similar body types. They're long, they're quick, but they're not just bigs. I don't think there's anyone in the East that could shut him down or slow him down. Even someone like Embiid, Giannis is too fast for him, right? So healthy Bucks, healthy Giannis, this is the team to beat, right?
Yeah, I mean, their defense has been lights out, obviously.
Number one last 15 games.
I really think, getting Crowder means, yes, less Allen on the court during crunch situations, and Middleton slowly starting to mix back into the groove. And they're just kind of getting everyone healthy, and everyone's kind of built into the program. I mean, Everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone
knows their roles. Nothing surprising, right? It's not like it's not like when
we need to remember that. He's still working slowly and surely back, and that guy's a playoff warrior. He can do some of the dirty things. They got Portis who can do some of the dirty things. Javon Carter playing him, he'll pick you up full court. He don't care. If they can stay healthy, which is obviously a big if, that's going to be big for them. Obviously, they're in the driver's seat for the one, and it's kind of a little bit shocking just because I really think they really don't care about having the one. I think
nearly as much as Boston. Like for a team like Milwaukee, they just want to be healthy come playoff time. I don't think they care as much about needing like a game 7 against Boston on their court, even though we've seen last year what can happen, right? You want to have that home game, but Milwaukee lost last year, not because of home or away.
They had a game at home they should have won.
Yeah, it was exactly. They had a game at home to put them away. Last year, it wasn't home away. It was they just didn't have enough. Yeah. They just didn't quite have enough. Plain and simple.
That's what it is. Yep. I will say
now you're 3 games up in the loss column on Boston.
Milwaukee. 3 games up, which is huge. I love Giannis. I'm the biggest Giannis homer in the world, but I'm always from the mindset you never poke the bear. And I don't know if you saw that interview he did
with about Jokic.
Not about Jokic.
Durant.
Yeah. Where he said, "Come work out with me, and I'll show you how to carry your own team." I'm like,
yeah.
It's like,
it's funny. I knew I was watching that, and I was like, "This is gonna bother me." Eric. I saw that. I knew it was gonna bother you a little bit.
Why are you saying that? Just you know what I mean? Like,
and then right after they showed that he said, "No, I can't say that anymore. Kevin Durant, I love you. You're awesome. Please don't and he was having a good time with it. But you're right. That's one of those things where you knew they were going to take that soundbite and frame it the way they did. And then also I knew I had to give you crap for Giannis going for the Ricky Davis triple double the other day at the end of that game when he just goes and gets the rebound. And then, he even said after the game, I kind of stole one. And then they took it away from him afterwards. But that's just one of those things where I wonder if because we're all human, And like, if you're Giannis, like you look around and, Jokic has been the back-to-back MVP. Now maybe you're going to get another Jokic MVP and he has the triple-double average, and you just those things get in your head a little bit, right? We're all human, and you're like, yeah, give me a triple-double, and just one of those things that
part of me was wondering. Now I couldn't find it online because a lot of these are never published. Does he have like an incentive, or if he gets like
right?
X amount of
like if he gets 5 or 10 or a certain amount.
I mean? Like, I wondered that, but I couldn't find any of that online.
I know, because he's above that. You know what I mean? Like
he's above that. But I mean,
it's
him, and the one thing about like him and Jokic, they weren't raised here. So like the way that they look at money is way different than the way.
This is a great point.
This here. So I mean, like if it's like, even if it's like X amount of money and he gets a bonus, he's gonna do that.
I know what I mean?
Like, just because he looks at money way completely different than all of us do. So
no,
maybe
right.
that's it. But this team is just clicking. They've won it before. Just the size of Portis and Lopez is huge. Plus getting Crowder, they have someone, if they face the Suns, that could give Durant a little problem, which I think some of these topper teams are missing. So
you just have more bodies to throw at guys now and options. You know what I mean? Like it's just, you're a little more versatile now, and it's it doesn't have to be Giannis picking up Durant and then trying to run the offense also, right? Like that would be hard. Giannis can, spot play the other team's best player instead and pick them up in big possessions here and there, but not necessarily the whole game. And when you compare the top two teams in the East, they couldn't feel more different right now, where Milwaukee feels like they're really coming together. They're clicking. Their defense is firing. They're getting healthier. And for Boston, it's sort of the opposite. They can't seem to get any. Well, first off, they need Robert Williams to be the best version of themselves. When they don't have Robert Williams like every other game, well, all of a sudden, they're a lot less deep. They don't have that big defensive presence in the paint. They're easier to score on. Even when they can play, Tatum and Brown and Smart and good defensive players, if you don't have Robert Williams there, you don't have a shot blocker. You don't have a paint protector. You don't have a presence that's going to scare people from driving in the lane. We saw that the other day. Boston's last few games, they've lost 3 in a row, and they've lost 4 out of 5. They've blown leads in all of them. They were up 28 against the Nets, and they lost in the biggest comeback of the year. So in the last 2 weeks, we've seen the Lakers come from down 27 against the Mavs, and the Nets come from down 28 against the Celtics and come back to win. Then the Celtics were up by 13 in the third quarter, playing the Knicks without Brunson. They lost that game. Then, in a game where Tatum wasn't playing and they had a couple guys out, Horford, I was out too, but they were still up double digits with 7 minutes left to go in the game against the Cavs. They lost that game. They've blown at least double-digit point leads in all 3 of their last losses, losing to 3 Western Conference playoff teams that they would all have to see. And their defense has not been fantastic. One thing that's weird, they've played 4 overtime games in their last 9 games. 4 of their last 9 games have gone to overtime. That's bizarre for that many games to go to overtime like that frequently. They played a double overtime game too. They've actually had 6 of their last 17 games go to overtime, which is just sort of nuts. Like they can't close teams out, Eric. They can't put anyone away.
You have to be able to close in this league. The ball from the limited stuff I've kind of watched has been sticking. We've talked about that before.
And this is what they did at the beginning of last year, right? Yeah. Before they started to play really well and everything got moving, this is what was their problem, where it was you go, I go, ISO, ISO.
Yep. And I mean, They bench Grant Williams because he's bitching too much.
Yeah, and the rest of the team doesn't like him either.
The rest of the team, like I know for a fact, doesn't like him. They just
he wants to challenge
to
Grant Williams every single play. He thinks it's not a foul. Yeah. Every time he throws up his hand and he's doing the, hey coach, take a look at that. And like his whole roster, you see them, they all start rolling their eyes. Like they're like, Grant, you just destroyed like Embiid. What are you talking about? You hit him right in the face. Like, shut up. It's a foul. Nobody's reviewing that, Grant.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare with him. And you know, he caught fire in the Eastern Conference Finals last year against the Bucks. You know, made some threes, shot a little bit above his head. This year, obviously, he's not shooting as good, but I just think that this team, like you said, without Robert Williams, is missing something. Horford, a year older, and if this team doesn't win it this year, they're going to have to seriously contemplate moving a Brown, just because I don't think you can win. You've kind of shown you really can't win with both of them. Jaylen Brown, you know, he's made some great improvements, you know, in terms of playing and everything, but Jesus, like it's just, if you don't win now, you're going to have to seriously give this roster a facelift and pick one of those guys to lead you, probably Tatum, but you're going to have to flip them and get some more players that work with them.
Because last year was the year where Milwaukee was hurt. A lot of crazy stuff going on with the Nets and the 76ers. Everything fell perfectly for them last year. Just perfectly. Couldn't have gone easier for them. The way that they ran into Miami, and Miami was banged up. They ran into Milwaukee. Milwaukee was banged up. Every team they caught them at their best. And like you said, you get some of your role players that are playing awesome. Grant Williams was just incredible through that stretch. Now, do you trust like Grant Williams and Al Horford this year to be as good as they were last year? I don't. They were pretty damn good in the playoffs. And you always point out Horford's a year older. And this team, they got to be a little careful because they're playing Portland tonight as you and I are talking. They were up as pretty big as I saw. But then following that, they go on a 6-game road trip, and they're only 1 game up on Philly right now in the 3 spot. You know, Philly is now won 3 in a row. They beat Milwaukee to snap that win streak. Embiid scored 22 points in the 3rd quarter on Tuesday. He just ate Rudy Gobert for lunch yesterday. Oh my God. You could tell that he was a little extra motivated with Gobert in there because everybody talks about how good of a defender Gobert is. And man, Gobert could do nothing. Like he had no answer for Embiid yesterday. So, I mean, they're playing some good basketball right now, you know, and you've pointed this out a lot throughout the year. You're not an Embiid fan. You're not a Harden fan. You're not a Doc fan, but you have even given them credit throughout the year. They're a little bit better as a team overall. They seem like they got a few extra pieces, and Joel does seem a little bit more motivated this year for whatever reason, as sort of like in not to talk as much as to do it on the court, to let his play speak for him.
Yeah, dude. The concern with the concern with them is can Harden and Embiid hold up in a deep series with a physical team?
Yep.
That is the number 1 concern with them. Number 2, what is the level we're gonna get with Maxey? How is he gonna be able to fend off as be their 3 guy? And what Tobias Harris is gonna show up? I mean, those are basically the questions with the 76ers.
You like forget about Tobias Harris. You know what I mean? Like you forget that he's on that team, and it's not because he's bad. He's just such a quiet player and like so nondescript. And they did overpay for him. Like he shouldn't be making as much money as he's made. But this is a guy who can absolutely still be a big weapon if teams want to take out Embiid and teams want to take out Harden. Like there's no reason why in a series Tobias Harris can't average 20 plus points a game for you. He just can he do that? Like, you know, will he do that is the question.
Yeah. And that is the $1 million question.
It is. Yeah. And they're in the 3 spot right now. They are, ahead of the Cavs, who are in the 4 spot. Cavs are 2 games up on the Knicks. So it looks like 4-5 right now would be Cavs Knicks. Knicks playing some Mobley's playing a lot better now for the Cavs too. And for the Knicks, they've won 9 of 10. They did just have a bad loss to Charlotte, but that was without Brunson. And you know what? Charlotte's actually been playing okay recently. You know what's funny about Charlotte, when you look at some of their metrics, with LaMelo out, they're obviously not as good of a team overall, but this sort of happens with Memphis too. Like, Charlotte's just a better defensive team though. Like, defensively, they're way.
Even the ball moves a lot more too.
Exactly. And the same thing happens with Memphis. Like, Ja obviously is going to help their offense, but Memphis is a better defensive team without Ja on the court.
Yeah.
You know? So it's not as if they're like a miserable team, but Knicks at the 5 spot, and they had a fun win against the Celtics. They beat the Celtics 3 out of 4.
Knicks are playing well. I mean, Brunson is just, I mean, how this guy is taken off. Like, I looked at this guy when he was at Villanova as Andre Miller. Like, I was like, this is Andre Miller. You know, he's going to be in the league 20 years, just be a reliable vet, start, but never be a star. And this guy's legitimately playing at an all-star level. You know, he's playing at a phenomenal level. You know, I was really disappointed. I'll use that term. I thought that RJ Barrett would have taken a big step forward. I haven't really seen it. Grimes shooting the ball well, got Mitchell Robinson back. And I really think that's kind of been the key ever since he came back. Their interior defense has been a lot better, and you still have to be able to protect the paint. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting team to, you know, come playoff time, what happens with them.
It was great in watching some of the post-game comments last night. So they lost to Charlotte, and after the game, some of the reporters asked Josh Hart, you know, are you guys, what happened? Were you guys fatigued? Were you tired, run down? And he said, honestly, people in this world have to get up at 5 a.m. and go dig ditches for 12 hours, work double shifts to pay for their family, just to pay their bills. Those people are tired. We get to play basketball for a living. I'm never going to use tired as an excuse. It's like, I love that. I was like, what a great answer. And like, God, like, if you're a fan, you're like, man, I love that. And anyone that says, God, athletes are these entitled people, that you listen to a comment like that and you go, well, no, they're not. This guy understands what he has. Jared Vanderbilt had a very similar type answer the other day. He's like, you know, yeah, because Darvin Ham said the same thing. We have like 2 or 3 hours a day that you need to really focus. You're telling me when you come for the game for 2 or 3 hours, you can't just lock in and give 100% energy and then go do whatever the hell you want the other 20 hours of the day?
Exactly. Exactly.
And you can just feel like a good energy there with the Knicks. There's just, they're building something good.
Tibbs has wanted Hart forever. Like, he's loved that guy, and him and Brunson are familiar with each other. They are capped though. I mean, if the team is probably going to make, you know, second round is their probably ceiling of the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. You know, everybody sort of figured Brooklyn was going to start to drop, and now they lost 4 in a row when we had talked last week, and now all of a sudden they've won 3 in a row, and they had the biggest comeback of the year against Boston, down 28. It's really all about Bridges and the level that he's raised his game. I saw somebody posting about this yesterday, and they said it reminded them of when Harden got traded from Oklahoma City, and just that you knew, because I think people forget, when Harden was in Oklahoma City, he was a really good defender. Do you remember when he would try on the defensive side? It's, you know why I specifically remember? Because when he would match up against the Lakers, he would play some of the best defense against Kobe of anybody in the whole league. He thought it was like a big honor to play defense against Kobe. And Harden would come off the bench. He was their 6th man for OKC, and he would light it up. He would close games for them. But a lot of times when Westbrook would have the ball and Durant would have the ball, Harden's job was to be like a defensive stopper. And it was pretty funny how, you know, his role flipped. He goes to Houston, and now all of a sudden he's got the ball in his hands all the time, and he's like this super high usage player. And somebody pointed out how Bridges reminds him a little bit of that. And if you just sort of look at the numbers for Bridges in his time since coming to Brooklyn, 9 games, he's averaging 26 plus points per game, 6 rebounds, over 3 assists. He's shooting 53% from the field and 50 from the 3-point range. And yeah, he had 30 points last night against the Rockets. So just seeing him take his game up a level, because you know what? There's a bunch of shots over there that somebody needs to take. Somebody's got to be the leader and initiate it.
Yep. He's playing lights out. I've always been a big Bridges guy. You got Cam Johnson that can extend the floor. You got Dinwiddie who can break you down one-on-one. You still have Claxton there who, is a liability on the free throw line, but he can play defense and he can rebound. And you got Finney Smith who can play defense and rebound. So tough team to get out, but again, what is this team at the cap? Second round of the playoffs.
Right. And coming up here, tell me which of these games are we sure that they're going to win? They play at Milwaukee, at Minnesota, at Denver, at Oklahoma City. That could be 4 losses in a row. Then they have home games against Sacramento, Denver, Cavs, and then at Miami. That's 9 games.
That's a tough little slate. And
that's their next 9 games. So there's not a whole lot of for sure wins that you'd circle on there for them. Miami's just behind them, Eric. Miami's 2.5 games behind the Brooklyn Nets. So Miami is currently the 7th spot right now. And battling for the 8 and 9, it's Toronto and Atlanta. Washington's in the 10 spot. So if it were to end and Miami were to win the play and they would get the 7 spot, they'd get a series against Boston. They almost beat Boston last year with a beat up team. And in listening to Bill Simmons, who's a big Boston guy, he gets a little scared of Miami with Jimmy Butler and this sort of like Jimmy Butler being the alpha dog there, and maybe Miami even being a better coach team. I don't know what to do with this year's version of the Miami Heat. Like, they always feel like a team that, yeah, I wouldn't want to run into them in a dark alley, but I don't know how far they can really go either, right? Or I don't know. Like, I'm a little more scared of the team that you like, Eric, Toronto, than of Miami.
Yeah, I mean, Oladipo's hit or miss coming off the bench. Strus has been banged up this year. Gabe Vincent is Gabe Vincent. Hero, does he really do that much? Is he really the third member of the quote unquote big 3 for them? And then you're signing Kevin Love, who can't play defense, who can't athletically keep up to play defense. You know what I mean?
The pieces don't fit well. It seems like there's like 1 or 2 connecting pieces that are missing there.
Yeah.
There's like 1 or 2 more guys that would really help. I don't know positive like what to think ever really with Atlanta right now. Atlanta, Toronto, Washington, they're separated by 1 game. So those 3 spots, they're battling for the 8, 9, 10 spot. And that's pretty important, Eric, because the difference between the 8 and the 9, if you're the 8, all you got to do is win 1 game. You have 2 chances to just win 1 to get yourself a series. And you can, probably stay away from Milwaukee. If you can get a chance to play Boston, I'd much rather run into a Boston team than a Milwaukee team. If you're 9-10, then you put yourself in that spot where you've got to win twice just to get that 8 spot and then go get a series with Milwaukee. So, if you're Toronto right now, I think they want to really try to get into the 8 line at the very least, right? Because then you just got to win once.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the line you want to be on. You don't want to have that extra game.
Yep. And Toronto has the Clippers coming up on Wednesday night. Then they play the Lakers coming up. So 2 games in LA for them. Let's see if they can, they can string together a few wins. They always play the Lakers really well because they've got a bunch of long wings, and they should match up pretty well with the Clippers also, which is going to be a little bit later on this evening as Eric and I are recording. So Eric, anything else to mention on the East side before we flip over, talk a little West?
Just watch out for the Raptors, man.
Yeah.
Watch out for the Raptors.
I like them, man. Again, like if they got in, if they were the team that was able to win that 7-8 play-in game and then play Boston, man, you got
I think
Siakam.
realistically, I think they're going to be able to get to the 8.
Me too.
I don't think they're going to be able to get.
Well, I don't, and at that point, it doesn't really matter. I mean, because the only difference between the 7 and the 8 is just that home game for that game, and so the 8 is still just winning one to get in. I like Toronto too, and you've been hyping them for the last few weeks. They're a feisty team. They're playing well. I think they're 9-4 in their last 13 games. Let's see if they can make some noise. We flip over to the West, Eric, and Denver just continues to run away and hide from everyone. They've won 4 in a row. They have a 7.5 game lead on the number 2 Sacramento Kings and the Grizzlies, who are tied. I expect down the stretch. Well, it's kind of funny because he's trying to win an MVP, but down the stretch, like, you got to give Jokic a few games, right? You got to sit him in a couple of these games that just don't mean anything.
Yeah, you have to. You have to kind of sit him down, let his body be healthy, because you have a team who's lost last year because their 2 other top players were hurt. You can't afford.
And he had to do too much. Yep.
For Chase and stuff. You have a roster that's built. I think a roster that theoretically could win, could come out with the other stuff going on with these other squads. So yeah, I think you got to rest. You got to be really selective and rest them, because you want to be healthy going into the dance.
If you are just looking at Denver and comparing them to every other team in the West, they are the only team that you really don't have like a bunch of questions and concerns of right now. Like, honestly, the only one. Like, you can go through every other team. Sacramento, they're brand new. We have no idea how they're going to respond to this. And their defense is a sieve. Memphis, I mean, we could spend a whole podcast talking about some of the issues that Memphis has going on right now. We know Jaw's going to be out for 4 more games. Phoenix is a brand new team. We don't really know how they're going to mesh and gel in a playoff series, and they're not very deep. And they could get hurt. I mean, CP3, Durant, one of those guys gets hurt, they're in serious trouble. Dallas, same thing defensively. We have no idea what to expect from them in a series. They don't have any size down low at all. Golden State cannot win on the road. They're one of the worst road teams in the league. They've struggled. They're only 2 games over 500. Minnesota, we don't know if Cat's coming back or not. And even if he does, come playoff time, we've seen Gobert get played off the court. The Clippers have 0 heart, no defense. The Lakers, we have no idea ever if LeBron's going to be healthy or if Anthony Davis is going to be healthy. The Pelicans were the number 1 seed like 2 months ago, and they have been one of the worst teams in basketball for like a 2-month stretch. You can't trust anybody in the West except for Denver.
I know.
Like, every team you start going through, and hey, injuries can happen, crazy stuff can happen, but as we sit right now, they feel so much safer than everybody else. As Sacramento's playing well, but Memphis is not, Eric, because Memphis is without Ja Morant. They were without Ja for their last 2 games. They lost to the Clippers and the Lakers. They're going to be without Ja for 4 more games. Now, the police investigated and found out that Ja won't.
Did you see what happened to Durant? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
He rolled his ankle in the layup line.
Are you kidding me? Wow.
Because I don't know if you it's.
Oh, I'm watching now. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Layup line injury. Oh my, and it looks not good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, and that's what we're talking about. It's just one move like that, and now all of a sudden, this team isn't as deep. Phoenix, right? I mean, they gave up a lot to get Durant, and you don't have a bench. Wow. Like, as we're talking, we see that. So yeah, Phoenix is in the 4 spot. Sacramento's the 2, and Memphis is the 3. Some things let's go like individually. Sacramento. I mean, they're 3.5 games up on the Suns now. Right now, the play-in winner would get them. I think for all of us watching Sacramento, it's just going to be on a, hey, good year. You got to prove it to us, though, come playoff time, right? Can they get stops?
Sure. For sure.
Because they have a different style. And when you run into them in the regular season, they play that like 5-out style, Eric, which is sort of hard for some teams defensively because not as many teams play that way, but when you play them in a series and you play them every game, you'll be able to adjust a little bit easier to what they're throwing at you versus in the middle of a year where it's like, oh, you play Sacramento and then you've got 4 teams that are way different. Then you play Sacramento again and then 3 teams that are way different. It's a little bit harder to completely change your whole philosophy for one team that's an outlier. In a series, good coaching and good teams, they're going to be able to make some adjustments to Sacramento a little bit more. So I think they're in a prove it stretch. But what do we think about Memphis right now and everything that's been going on there?
So I got 2 stories to tell,
please,
in regards to Memphis. Number 1, I was pretty good back in the day, way back when I played. First game, I snuck out after the game. Snuck back in my place. My parents lived on a ranch. I 1-floor house. Snuck in through the window. I thought I was scot-free, and my old man was just sitting in the dark
on my bed. Oh, that's great.
And scared the shit out of me. And he just said, what he said to me is, he's like, look, he goes, in life, you're going to have some windows open up for you that the people you're hanging out with aren't going to have open up. And you don't want one decision that you make while you're young change what happens in your life.
Yeah.
And I mean, that kind of hit really hard. He's like, look, you're not going to be in trouble for this. This is like your warning. I'm not going to tell you who to hang out with, but you're going to have to start thinking about this stuff for yourself.
Yes.
My second one is, when I graduated from college, I didn't know what to do. Like, I was like, where do I go? What do I do? One guy out here in Chicago was like hiring to work at his academy, and he hired me, and one of my friends was playing for the Bulls. And, him and I, he was a drinker. He could booze. He could throw him back. And, back in the day, I used to throw back some soda pops.
Toss down a few.
And, he was like, yeah, just come out here, live with me. I got a huge place, plenty of room for you, whatever. So I moved out here, staying at this mansion was absolutely absurd. And, we partied a little bit too hard, but it got to the point where I told him, and I'm not going to say his name. I was like, dude, like, I think I love you like a brother, and I think I'm just ruining your career because we're partying all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I ended up moving out, and he ended up getting traded like a couple weeks later. So we stopped hanging out, but it was kind of like, you have to kind of like know who you like are surrounded with. It's got to put you in a better scenario.
Yep.
And let's face it, dude, you can say all you want about LeBron. LeBron puts good people around himself.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He's not going to be in that situation. Ja has a lot of kids that look up to him, and he's doing that.
Patrick Beverly made a good point too. And this is exactly what you were saying. Patrick Beverly said, where is somebody around him to take his phone? Take your phone, take all the crap from you, and say, dude, what are you doing right now? Don't put this out there. Take the gun. Like, where is somebody in his circle to tell him, dude, this isn't cool. You can't do it. Like, LeBron has those people. Kobe had those people. Those guys, they had people that tell them things that you don't want to hear sometimes. You cannot surround yourself with a bunch of yes men. And that's what a lot of these guys that come up, they bring their buddies, and they know that they're loyal and they're friends that aren't going to tell them anything wrong. But, for whether or not you like or love Patrick Beverly, he just said, where was someone around him to take his phone from him right then? And don't let him do that. He needs someone like that there, and they're not there.
Yeah. Whereas, like, all the time, and like, I have a phenomenal relationship with both my parents, but it just kind of seems like every time we look, Ja Rule's dad is there.
Or Morant's dad, right? Is getting right into it.
Yeah. Where's his dad right now to say,
I know.
what the hell are you effing doing?
I know.
Where, and it's right now, this is immature recklessness.
It
On
is,
the
because
verge of getting dangerous.
it is.
That's
It's scary.
where it is right now. It's immature recklessness on the verge of getting dangerous. You need to. They had the stuff with the lasers pointing at the Pacers security guards. Whatever happened in the pickup game, and now this. So, like, I don't know what happened. I'm not there,
Yeah.
but that's 3 things in a short matter of time. And generally speaking,
When
where
there's
there's
smoke,
smoke, there's
there's some
fire.
fire. Yep. And
So I don't know what's going on, but it makes you think there's something going on.
And the reports are out there that if you were so he was cleared by the police of any like actual wrongdoing. There was nothing in the investigation because they didn't know really, like nobody called the police to say he had a gun. The police were only investigating it based off the video. So they didn't have enough information just based off of like video and hearsay because he didn't do anything. But that's different than the NBA. The NBA has a code of conduct. You don't have to get charged with a crime to be against the NBA's code of conduct. If you've got a gun on that team plane or anywhere on team premises, they can suspend you for 50 games. 50. 5-0.
From me growing up and playing, I have a lot of friends that are like still associated with the NBA. They think it's going to be longer than 50 games.
Yeah.
From what my talking to them, I'm not going to mention who they are, but
sure.
from what they've told me, it's going to be a long, long while.
And keep in mind, on top of Ja being out, because this is so like another one of those things where it's sort of weird to talk about this in sports capacity too, because man, everything that's going on in the world with guns, and we keep having all these shootings over and over and over again at schools, at hospitals, at libraries, out in the public, and then people waving the guns around like it's no big deal. But we have to talk about what it actually means from a basketball sense too on the court for them. This is a team that in a year, like we just said, where you don't trust a lot of the teams in the West, they were going to have a legitimate chance with home court advantage, being one of the top 2 or 3 seeds. And for all the negative stuff about them, when he's on the court with them, there's still a very good basketball team that he can carry. But now we don't know what's going to go on with him. We know at the very least he's missing 4 more games, and who knows about the suspension. On top of that, Steven Adams has had a lingering injury, and Brandon Clark, their backup big, is done for the year. So it's not a whole lot of positives for a team that played without Ja last year and has won without Ja, but I don't know if they can win without Ja and Clark and maybe someone like Steven Adams if he's not around. That's all of a sudden taking 3 of your top 8 or 9 rotation players out of the mix. That's not easy.
I don't mean to sound negative, but they're done.
Yeah. There's like, I agree with you. There's just,
they're done.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
like they're done. They're, good story a couple years ago, but
now it's not a good story.
Your NBA window could shut really fast.
Like we just said with Boston, man. It could. With the Celtics, it could close instantly. The Memphis looked like a team that was going to be there for years to come, and now you have no idea how quickly it can change. We talked about Kevin Durant a minute ago, the number 4 seed Suns. Booker, KD, CP3, and Ayton. But then after those 4, Okogie, Payne, Torrey Craig, Wainwright, Terrence Ross, TJ Warren. Like, is that enough of a bench when you have guys like CP3 and Kevin Durant who are injury prone, and we know that they get hurt quite a bit? You need a little bit more from your bench. I don't know if they're deep enough, and I don't know if everyone's going to stay happy. Eric, this is something you and I were talking about earlier on the Better Than Vegas show. DeAndre Ayton has not been happy in Phoenix over the last year and a half. And this year, he was averaging 18 points per game, He's always been more of an offensive player than a defensive player since he was in college. But in 3 games since Kevin Durant has come over, Ayton, 6.7 field goal attempts per game and only averaging 10.7 points per game. A lot of the NBA writers and reporters and fans, they see big super teams like this get put together, but they don't think about the domino effects that it might have. How, oh yeah, they don't really have a bench. And oh yeah, a guy like Ayton, who you need to play strong defense and rebound, you got to keep this guy happy. And if he's not getting very many touches, he's not going to be happy. Eric, we know guys like Dwight Howard, big men, anyone, when you do all the dirty work, you want to get the ball once or twice. Everybody does. We're human. We have egos. Even the guys that know they're not the greatest offensive players, they still want to get some looks. And for someone like Ayton, who is a very good offensive player, this might not be easy for him. And he may not love the fact that, oh yeah, he's the 4th option and the 3 options ahead of him, in particular, the 2 of Durant and Booker, are extremely high usage guys that could come down the entire quarter could be Booker Durant, just back and forth.
Yeah. I have a lot of issues with the Suns team. First one is Booker. He runs his mouth way too much. Like I have never seen a guy.
For a guy who hasn't won anything.
And the whole thing at the end of the Mavericks game, why are you pointing and talking to Luka? You know what I mean? Because Luka embarrassed you in Game 7. Yeah. Where were you in Game 7? Where was that Thunder in Game 7?
I know.
Can Chris Paul stay healthy? Can Chris Paul make a shot in the
4 rounds? And his 3-point shot lately has been bad. He's been shooting in the 20s percentage wise in 3-point range as of late.
And look, I can tell you firsthand that DeAndre Ayton don't like Monty Williams, and Monty Williams don't like DeAndre Ayton. So there's always going to be that issue going on with them. The one dude they have that I do kind of like is Wainwright. I mean,
I do too. I do too. Yeah.
He can kind of do the dirty work.
He was closing with them the other night. He was on the closer with them. Yeah.
They did get Terrence Ross, good in 5-minute spurts, scoring and everything. This team to me has a lot of questions. Obviously, I don't know. For whatever reason, people put Monty Williams on this pedestal as a coach. Is he really that good? I don't know.
I don't either.
I think the jury is a little bit still out on him. This team should have beat Milwaukee in the playoffs. They're up big.
Yep. And
they kind of fell apart
and then they completely cratered against Dallas.
Yeah, and they completely just. So to me, there's just way too many questions with this team. And the guy that bought him, of course I'm spacing on his name like an idiot. That guy's a go-getter, dude. That's a young guy who's a go-getter. And if this doesn't work, he's gonna be looking to make moves. Because Ishbia? Yeah. He wants them to be on point. You know what I mean? He's there to bring a title. That's why the Durant move was made. And look, if this doesn't work out, he's probably going to move on and look to get something else. I just don't see it though, man.
I know. I don't mean either. I'm a fade on them for sure. So they're in the 4 spot right now. In the 5 spot are the Mavs. And as we're recording, the Mavs are down by 20 right now. They're playing the Pelicans. The thing with them, okay, offensively, they can be fantastic. But since acquiring Kyrie, so 10 games now, their defensive rating is number 26. Their offensive rating is number 4, but they're 5-5. I think that's who they are.
I will say this though, everyone's always so quick to judge people when they don't know this, the backstory of people. I saw this TikTok and this guy like tells a story how a 10-year-old went to bed and in the middle of the night his mom passed away. And I'll say this, if I was 10 years old in the middle of the night and my mom passed away, it would kind of mess me up a little bit.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm not making excuses, but I do think like when Kyrie starts doing his crazy shit, we kind of got to remember that a little bit.
No,
you know what I mean?
dude.
I'm not making excuses for any.
No, it's not an excuse, but there's a reason. There's a reason why you maybe you didn't have that extra support, someone to kind of to steer you in the right direction. Maybe when you're thinking went off a little bit.
We kind of, and let's face it, like you're 10 and you lose your mom, that's going to mess you up a little.
Oh man. Just brutal.
You know, I think, and like, don't get me wrong, I'm not agreeing with any of the stuff he said in the past. I just think we got to remember that. This team defensively is a nightmare. Interior wise, they're a nightmare. Could it be a fun series, an up and down series in the first round? But that's it. I don't see them getting around the first round.
No.
Warriors, I mean, they can't win on the road. I really think the big thing with the Warriors, though, we talked about it earlier today, is they're just really missing Wiggins right now.
I know,
because Wiggins can play the three. Wiggins can bring it up.
People forget how big of a deal he is. Like having Wiggins as like, what do we need tonight? Wiggins will defend the other guy's best player. Oh, you know what? Like they're not really defending him. Wiggins will go score 25. Last year, didn't he lead the series in rebounding in the NBA Finals? You bet that, or like
he led him in rebounding. Like he's just all over the place with what he can do and everything he can do, and they're missing a big chip without him. And I think we just kind of need to remember that, especially with how close the West is and how tough it is to win on the road. You're missing someone like Wiggins, who's your best on the ball defender. Probably your second best rebounder, second or third, depending on what you think of Draymond Green and Looney and him, and probably your third or fourth best spot up shooter. You know, so and he can 20 off the dribble. So
it shows because they made 23 pointers in a game and still lost. Yeah, last night. Like with Steph made 10, he had 40 points. But their defense is bad on the road too. They go through these lulls. You had Minnesota, who had a pretty good stretch where they played. They beat the Lakers, they beat the Clippers, and I think they beat the Kings too during that stretch. Then they lost to Philly. I don't really know what to expect from them. Gobert, just like I said, he got crushed. They're giving him the ball a little bit more offensively. He's up to 16.3 points per game in this recent stretch, but they have a weird schedule. They have 7 games coming up, all against Eastern Conference teams. They play Brooklyn at Atlanta, Boston at the Bulls, at Toronto, the Knicks, and then Atlanta, which is really weird. When everybody's playing all the West teams against each other, they have like 3 weeks where they don't play any teams from the West. So that'll be interesting to see how they move around. Eric, let's finish up here and talk about the last couple teams on the Western Conference side. The Clippers. They're only 1-5 in their last 6, and the only game they won, they beat Memphis, who was without Ja, Dylan Brooks, Clark, and Adams. They gave up 129 points in that game that they won. They gave up 51 points in the third quarter. They were very lucky. They went on a 17-0 run in the fourth quarter, so they were able to come back and win. But they are only 3-7 in their last 10 games, and their defensive rating is number 28. They are only ahead of the Kings, Pacers, and Blazers. And there's no excuses. They've got their whole team now. Everybody's healthy. They made their acquisitions that they needed. Like there's a weird vibe and heart and like no leadership with this team.
I mean, when your best player is MIA and quiet and you got Paul George, I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of caught. Just got a notification that Sean Kemp has been arrested in a drive-by shooting. That's another NBA player with a
Wow.
they gone or booked. Excuse me, booked.
Wow.
Your Lakers. Look, I mean, this is my thing with them. Is I really feel they can't get past the play-in tournament unless LeBron's there. That's just the way I feel with it.
I don't think
with AD, has been playing good, but you look at the body of work that AD has over his whole career, and I think it's hard to trust that he's going to be able to maintain this to get them to where they need to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they need LeBron, no doubt about it. What I like about them, win, lose, wherever they end up, they're playing way better defense, which is something that you and I harp on with all these teams, because if you are not a good defensive team, you have no chance. You just don't. Like, if you're not an above a top half of the league defensive team, you're not going to win. There's never been a team that's a bad defensive team win the NBA Finals. It's just not going to happen. Since the trade deadline, they have the #1 defensive rating in the NBA. They are 7-3 in their last 10, and they have a defensive rating of 107.6. So that is good. But you're right. How far are they going to go? As far as LeBron will take them, because Anthony Davis has been awesome. 30 points, 15 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, 28-19, 30-5, 39-8, 30-22. He's going to break down if he has to do this on offense and on defense for a while longer. We've seen it. He breaks down every time. It's asking too much of him. There's not very many guys that you ask to do that in the league, to be the guy that catches the ball every time on offense and shuts everything down on defense. What's nice for them, they have a good schedule coming up. Toronto, the Knicks at home, at the Pelicans, at the Rockets. And for the Lakers, they have 2 games left with the Suns. They don't play any team that's a top 3 seed in the East or the West. Okay, Eric, give me Dallas, or you got Oklahoma City, Portland, Utah, Pelicans that are the teams behind the Lakers. Who of those do you like? Do you not? We've sort of already said we think Utah's on their way out, right? They've lost 4.
I think Utah's on their way out.
Yep.
Pelicans are going to reevaluate.
Zion in 2 weeks.
In a couple weeks, they're done in my eyes without Zion. You really don't know what they have without him. Blazers play no defense. I kind of think by default it's going to be the Thunder.
Yeah. The Thunder have a good basketball team too. And if Shea's playing, and one thing that we've talked about, it would be good for them to get a play-in game or a short series for a lot of these young guys. Even if it gets your butt kicked, get them a little bit of experience.
Memphis a couple years ago.
Right? It worked out very well for Memphis, and they were able to take that next step. So, Eric, buddy, we're just finishing up. I know you've got another show to go get to right now. We're going to follow you at ETOF21. We'll check out all your great stuff at ETOF21 Sports all over the place. And you and I will be on Better Than Vegas this weekend, talking college basketball, NBA, everything going on in the world of sports. So go ahead, my friend, get on out of here. Thanks so much for helping us out, and we'll talk to you again in the next few.
Sounds good. Talk soon, my friend.
Folks, we'll be back again next week. Each and every week, Eric joining us to talk about